The time allotted for this debate has expired, and I call the clerk.
Private members' business. Notice number 5, Construction, Forestry, Mining and Energy Union.
I call the member for Goldstone.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move the motion relating to the Construction, Forestry, Mining and Energy Union in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper.
You have the call.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, Australians should want a system of government that is free from corruption and cartel kickbacks. But the reality is we have nothing like that right now. Under the coalition government, we established the Australian Building and Construction Commission to rein in the criminal law-breaking and cartel kickbacks between the CFMEU, so many of the companies that go along with their destructive behaviour, and of course their direct connection to the ACTU and of course the Australian Labor Party. The scale of corruption is unending, so there was more work to be done under the ABCC. But what was the answer? One of the first acts of this Labor government was to abolish the ABCC and take what little left of the leash that was holding back the CFMEU corruption and let it loose from the Australian community. And now they are complicit every step of the way in the corruption that has been engaged. Because corruption is corrosive to our democracy, Deputy Speaker. After it was revealed the CFMEU was directly connected to criminal gangs, organised crime and bikies to access public projects, the Albanese government eventually had to admit maybe we got it a bit wrong and shouldn't have let them completely off the leash, and so they put the CFMEU under administration. 15 months on, the verdict is now in. It's not my opinion, it's not the Labor government's opinion, it's whistleblowers' opinion, who are now calling out the administration and saying ultimately that corruption has actually got worse. Only last week, Charles Ferrugia went public on the program 60 Minutes to highlight the bullying and intimidation that is now systemic within the CFMEU. While the minister waxes lyrical about being the strongest possible course of action, the reality shows something completely different. The facts show now the administrator appointed figures who have since been sacked on allegations of corruption. Rather than destroying corruption, he has tragically become the enabler of it. When it's got down to Fair Work and what they have reported in Senate estimates, they said they would have grave concerns if meetings were approved between the Victorian head of the CFMEU, Zack Smith, and of course John Setka. That has happened. The administrator greenlighted meetings with John Setka and has completely ignored meetings with Mick Gatto and has simply issued cautions. Recent evidence has been highlighted in the Age newspaper of veterans that want to work on Victorian big bill projects and have been asked to pay corrupt kickbacks simply for the right to work in $10,000 brown paper bags. In Victoria, the CFMEU hires organised crime to attack companies. In New South Wales, contractors hire organised crime to respond to CFMEU thuggery. This is absurd, and the cost is being paid for by first-home buyers who are paying a higher cost for new apartment builds and paying the cost, and the cost is flowing on, of course, to CFMEU corruption. Of course, taxpayers are paying an even bigger price through the higher cost for public projects, lower returns and lower value, but more importantly, when higher costs go up on public projects, tomorrow it is debt, and in addition to that, it is future taxes on future generations, all to finance and feed cartel kickbacks to the CFMEU. Taxpayers are paying a higher price, and the beneficiaries are criminal gangs, organised crime and bikies. I don't think it should shock anybody, and it amazes me there are Labor members speaking against this motion, but here they are, to be judged by the Australian people, to somehow stand by and say they think this corruption is acceptable. It is not acceptable, Deputy Speaker. Confidence in the administration has collapsed. The minister has strapped herself to the administrator in arguing that this is the strongest possible course of action, but nobody believes it. 3 weeks ago, we wrote to her asking basic questions. She won't answer. Last week, this is how bad it got, Deputy Speaker. The head of the Victorian CFMEU, Zack Smith, who lent his numbers to the Prime Minister on the National Executive of the Labor Party, self-identified sufficiently he was tainted that he removed himself. When even the corrupt are abandoning ship, you know it's bad. but he is still an advisor to the Minister on her National Construction Industry Forum. And when we asked her about it in Parliament last week, she ran interference. There's no wonder the Minister is blocking an inquiry into the CFMEU administration. She still continues to get advice from Zack Smith from Victorian CFMEU. We need a clear plan to address the shortcomings of this administration. That's why we need an inquiry, and we need Mr Smith out of the way. We need Australians' help. Go to timwilsonmp.com.au/CFMEU_inquiry to fight back and lend your name to stand up against CFMEU corruption.